Hi everyone, my name is Angela and I am a compulsive eater.
Hi Angela.
Yeah, 15 and 5 would be great. That'd be perfect, thank you. So just like all of you, I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from our gray sheet. My food is written down and I call it into a sponsor or another person who is a qualified sponsor who has at least 90 days or more of gray sheet abstinence. I don't eat in between no matter what, and abstinence is the most important thing in my life without exception. And I can say that today, even though I have things in my life that are really important to me. I have 2 amazing teenagers who I love. I have a career, I have a couple of businesses that I run, I have, a home that I live in, which wasn't always the case for this compulsive overeater. And all those things are important, but I know that none of those things would be possible if I didn't put my food on the scale. So I recently took my little dog to the vet, and the vet said that she was gaining weight. So now she is also measuring her food. So anyway, the apples don't fall far from the tree, I guess, my little beings that live with me. I apologize for being late today. As you were talking, I'm thinking, what excuse could I give? You know what? There's no excuse. I love my bed, okay? And that's it. I was late, and I apologize, and I'm glad I'm here now. So thank you. Thank you, Stacy, for asking me to speak. I'm a pinch hitter today. There was a couple that canceled, so yeah, you got me. So I'll tell you, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now, but I'm going to also talk about the steps, because a lot of people come, and especially I have sponsees who are new, and they're like, when are we going to work the steps? I want to work the steps, and blah, 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 the steps. Well, my sponsor, she's been around for a very, very long time, and she says, I have heard people talk about the steps and whine about the steps and focus on the steps, and then they leave and they never come back. So what we do here is we focus on the food. So what we do is we focus on weighing and measuring. And, she says, how do you be abstinent? How do I be abstinent? Weigh and measure my food. There's a lot of things that people suggest on how to stay abstinent. Go to meetings. I'm a live meeting person. Go to meetings, go to live meetings, make outreach calls, stay in contact with the community, whatever. All these things. Some people do writing. Some sponsors tell them to do this, that, and the other. But the bottom line for Gray Sheet is, how do we stay abstinent? We weigh and measure our food. If that food is weighed and measured meal after meal after meal, that's how we stay abstinent. It's just kind of too simple. It almost is mind-blowing. So, but I always tell my sponsees, you're doing the steps right now. Because if you're here in this room, or if you're within the sound of my voice, this is step 1. It's like admitting that I'm powerless over food. Like, I cannot handle this situation. I need help. So I'm here because I need something outside to help me. So that's step 1. And then it leads right into step 2, to have the group or the sponsor. When I was new, I used to get so mad at my sponsor because there I was. I had a little apartment. It was my first abstinent apartment and my abstinent kitchen. And I couldn't pay the rent. And so many, many times in my first 2 years of abstinence, I would get that 3-day notice tacked up on my door. Pay in 3 days or leave. And I'd be like, oh no, I'm going to lose my apartment. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? She'd say, weigh and measure your food. Click. And I'm like, what kind of a higher power is that? It's like, I need some consolation here. I need some consoling. I need some discussion about this. No, weigh and measure your food. Click. And sure enough, I would weigh and measure my food, and I made it. I ended up not losing that apartment. So power greater than myself. And in the beginning, so I had a relationship with God, but for me, and I was doing all the journaling before coming to Gray Sheet, the journals. And to this day in my closet, I have a stack like this of journals.
I threw out the really pitiful ones, and I kept a few of them. But they were pitiful. They were all pitiful. And I wrote to God, I hate you, I hate you, why are you doing this to me? It was all victim, victim, victim. And so I needed a God at that time, because he was the perfect scapegoat. So I could blame my life on God. So when I came here, I had to kind of adjust who God was for me. And I had to trust, and it wasn't easy because I didn't trust people. I didn't trust anybody. I had been to treatment centers twice, and those psychiatrists, one of them who I saw going through the salad bar and totally the behavior that I do around food, like dancing around it and trying to figure out what she could eat. And she was supposed to be our psychiatrist in this treatment center. And I could see the disease in her. So I just didn't trust people. I did not trust people. And when I came here, though, and when people like you looked me in the eye and said, this is what we do. We weigh and measure our food, the biggest and the best. Go to meetings, go to markets, read labels, it's therapeutic. When they looked in my eyes and when I saw the clarity and when they spoke my language, like when they said stuff like, the mental gymnastics of where am I going to get the food, what am I going to do with the food, when am I going to eat, when am I not going to eat, what diet am I on today, maybe I just won't eat until 5, maybe, all this mental gymnastics. And when you guys talked about that, I could relate, and then I could trust. So slowly, this room became the only place on the planet where I could trust people. And I didn't trust people out there, but I trusted you, because what you were saying was what I was feeling. So, a power greater than myself. Well, it was a power that I could trust. And hi, this is Gray Sheet.
This is Nancy Frutos.
No, it's a Gray Sheet meeting.
All right, okay.
But thanks for stopping by. So, step 2 came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. First, I had to know I was insane, and I did know that because I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop eating. And then step 3, to turn my life and my will over to the care of somebody or something, I had to trust it first. So I trusted you guys, and I'm so grateful that you are who you are and that you speak my language. You guys get me. And I'm so grateful for that. So step by step, I trusted what you said. If I had problems or food emergencies, I would pick up the phone and call somebody on the Gray Sheet. There was only 3 people in the LA community, so I often called people who I'd never met, just a number and a name on a sheet of paper. And even that person spoke my language. And I could say, what do I do? And they would tell me, and I would do what they said. I learned that I can be dumb around food at Gray Sheet. I don't have to figure it out. And I'm actually encouraged to be dumb around food. So if I make a mistake, or if there's something missing, or if I put something in my mouth and I swear there's sugar in it, I don't have to make a decision. I get to call somebody and they can tell me what to do. So I turn my will and my life over to my sponsor and over to you guys. Really, for real, because before that, I was a lone wolf. My favorite song was Simon and Garfunkel's I Am a Rock, I Am an Island, because that was me. I was like, and a rock feels no pain and an island never cries. Those are the lyrics of the song, and that was me. And so coming here was my first, opening that little door to allow somebody into my life. And then step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory. Well, for me and for this program, because it's all about the food, when I write down my food on that piece of paper every day, that's my inventory. This is what I'm having for breakfast. you know, when businesses write an inventory, they write what they have. This is what we have in the storeroom. This is what we have on the shelves. This is what we have in the cash register. Well, that's exactly what we do in Gray Sheet. This is what I'm going to have for breakfast. This is what I'm going to have for lunch. This is what I'm going to have for dinner once a month. This is what the scale says. This is what time I'm going to call you. This is the inventory. So it's kind of like an inventory. So every day we get to do that. And then step 5, we turn it over. So I call my sponsor and I share my inventory with her. This is what I'm going to have. And I tell her what I'm going to do. This is what and I had a sponsee on the phone this morning. Okay, what's your plan for the day? And we went through her day. This is how I'm going to do lunch, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do dinner, and then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to go to sleep, and I'm going to wake up, and I'm going to have my abstinent breakfast. And it's somebody told me 12-step programs are so pedestrian. Well, it is. It's pedestrian. Like, we boil it down to the, you know, to the basics. It's like, what am I going to do with my food today? I'm going to weigh and measure. I'm going to chop, prepare, and then in between, I have life. And if I can't confront life, if life is too difficult, that's okay. I can have a sleep. I can watch a movie, take myself to the movie, which I didn't do for the first little while because I couldn't stand the smell of the pop stuff. So, but whatever it takes. So step 5, I turn that inventory over to my sponsor. And then step 6, which is what? Tell me, somebody. Step 6 is?
We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character.
So the defects of character were the urges to binge, the urges to eat. Like whatever life throws at me, my solution was to eat. So, you know, I'm so reminded, especially when I listen to AA talks, you know, the 12 steps, food is only mentioned in the first step. The rest doesn't even mention food. Food was never my problem. Food was my solution. Because no matter what was happening, if I felt this way or felt that way or this was happening or that was happening, food was right there for me. It was my solution. I turned to food. It was my friend. It was my lover. It was my confidant. It was everything to me. So now in this program, I discover that my problem actually was life. I had a problem and, you know, still dealing with life. We all deal with life. As long as there's a heartbeat and a pulse, we're all dealing with life. Is life perfect? Do I deal with it perfectly? Never. But we claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. So life was my problem and food was my solution. So in this program and in step 6, we get to exchange food for the program and the fellowship. Now this gets to be my solution. My solution is the Gray Sheet food plan today. So I lean into that, you know, and I have sponsees who are slipping and sliding, and I'm like, lean into the program, you know. Why do we meet in live meetings? Because we hate people,
Sure.
you know, and it's to kind of try and reverse that natural thing. Like, I don't really trust people. I don't like people. I was always the one that was smiling, and, oh, you know, everything's fine, and how are you? And I was always the life of the party. But inside, I was scared, and I didn't really like anybody. I know some people in here can relate to that. So life was my problem, and this is my solution. And then step 7, you know, asked him, became willing to have those defects removed. Step 8, asked for him to remove them. And the defects are just automatically turning to food instead of turning to God. So back to step 2, these steps really go. Instead of turning to, so recently, and I go to other meetings. So recently, my son wants to go to Costa Rica and study in a study abroad program. The thing costs $14,000, which for me is a lot of cash. So we're preparing, trying to, you know, get this money raised, and he has a fundraiser and doing work and everything, and it's still not raised. So about a month ago, and I got to finish, I call the Discover card, and in 3 minutes I have an $11,000 credit line. And I'm like, yay, thank you, God. And then my friend goes, I think you need to go to that meeting. So I go to that meeting late, because it's at the same time as this one. We have an emergency PRG, which is a pressure relief group, on the sidewalk, the three of us holding hands and praying. And she goes, we don't debt. And if you have a credit card, then you don't allow God to do his thing. And she did the Hillary Clinton shimmy. And she goes, you gotta let God do his thing. And she shimmied again. And I'm like, okay, fine. So we said a prayer, we left. And I'm like, yeah, right. I've been to this program before. I know all about it. I'm gonna use my credit card. Well, I go home, and I kid you not, the very next day, 3 clients pay me in advance for a bunch of classes. Another client donates $2,500. Blah, blah, blah. 2 or 3 guests check in for a whole month. All of a sudden, I have the $14,000 plus still remaining my prudent reserve. Long story short, which it's already long, somebody told me, by the time you say long story short, it's too late. So, by a miracle, I paid for the whole program in cash. And just last night, in front of my kids, I told them this story. I cut up my credit card. So, if we don't depend on God, we don't allow him the chance to do his thing. So, that's what we learn, but it's never perfect. Step by step in this program. I have a problem with life, but step by step, one day at a time, sometimes 1 minute at a time, I learn to put my trust in God and in all of you. If I have a problem, I had a pregnancy in Grace Sheet, I had a marriage in Grace Sheet, I had a divorce in Grace Sheet, I had all kinds of things in Grace Sheet, and I can always call one of you. And one of you has experienced the same thing that I'm going through. So I lean into the program, and that's today how I deal with life. How I stay abstinent is I weigh and measure my food. How I deal with life, I lean into the program. Thank you for letting me share.